Claire Morgan was a 24-year-old fashion student chasing dreams in Los Angeles, while Rajesh Malhotra was a wealthy married businessman living a life of power and privilege. When their worlds collided, what began as a forbidden romance quickly spiraled into an obsession so dangerous that it ended in betrayal, violence, and murder. Claire Morgan had always dreamed of making it big in Los Angeles. At 24, she was balancing fashion school during the day and working evenings as a server at high-end events to cover her bills. Most nights were a blur of carrying champagne trays, smiling at strangers, and watching the city's elite glide past her without a second glance. But one particular evening, at a glittering charity gala in downtown LA, everything changed. The ballroom glowed with chandeliers, and the air was thick with perfume, laughter, and the clinking of glasses. Claire moved between tables, careful not to spill, when her eyes landed on a man unlike anyone else in the room. He carried himself with effortless confidence, dressed in a tailored black suit that seemed made for him. His sharp features and commanding presence made people step aside as he walked, though he wasn't loud or flashy. He simply belonged at the center of attention. When Claire learned his name, Rajesh Malhotra, she felt a sudden jolt of curiosity. He was a successful businessman with properties across Los Angeles, known for his charm as much as for his wealth. To most in the room, he was untouchable, a figure to admire from a distance. To Claire, he was magnetic, someone who made the noise of the gala fade away for just a moment. She noticed how he scanned the room with a subtle detachment, as if searching for something beyond the crowd. When his eyes briefly met hers, a quiet spark ignited, leaving her unsettled. She had served countless powerful men before, but none had lingered in her mind the way he did. At that moment, Claire couldn't have known that this fleeting connection would draw her into a secret world of luxury, lies, and a dangerous love that would alter her life forever. The first meeting after the gala felt like chance, though Claire would later wonder if fate had quietly pulled the strings. Rajesh had sent flowers to her apartment, along with a note thanking her for her grace and elegance. For Claire, it was unlike anything she had ever experienced. Within days, he arranged to see her privately, away from the glittering events where their paths had crossed. What began as a simple dinner at an exclusive rooftop restaurant quickly transformed into something intoxicating. Rajesh was attentive, his words carefully chosen, his presence overwhelming. Claire felt seen in a way she never had before. Their relationship blossomed in secrecy. Claire found herself whisked away in sleek black cars to hidden restaurants tucked into the city's corners. In hotel suites with city lights flickering through the windows, he wrapped her in a world she had only dreamed of. Gifts followed. Diamond earrings slipped into her hands after dessert. Designer handbags left on her chair before he left for meetings. Claire tried to resist at first, telling herself she didn't need his wealth, but the attention was addictive. Rajesh made her believe she was extraordinary, and she clung to that feeling. Yet even in those stolen moments, shadows lurked. Rajesh never stayed the night, never answered calls during certain hours, and always disappeared before dawn. He admitted he had a family, but whispered promises of leaving it all behind. Claire chose to believe him, convincing herself that patience would make him hers completely. As weeks turned into months, she began to see their affair not as a reckless escape, but as the foundation of her future. Each secret rendezvous pulled her deeper, and every promise he made tightened her grip on a love that was already spiraling beyond her control. By the time half a year had passed, the glamour of their secret affair had begun to fray. Claire started noticing small details that unsettled her. Rajesh no longer texted her as frequently, and when he did, his messages were short, almost hurried. The expensive dinners grew less extravagant, the surprises less frequent, and the warm words that once melted her doubts were replaced with excuses. Claire convinced herself it was just business pressures, but deep inside, a seed of fear had been planted. What she couldn't see was the storm brewing in Rajesh's personal life. His wife, Anjali, had quietly begun to piece things together. The late nights, the sudden trips, the faint smell of perfume on his clothes, it didn't add up. Without confronting him directly, she started keeping closer watch, forcing Rajesh to be more careful. For Claire, his increasing distance felt like abandonment. The man who once made her feel invincible now seemed to be slipping away. Her response was not retreat, but pursuit. She began showing up at his office unannounced, bringing coffee and excuses to see his face. She waited outside his gym, hoping to catch a glimpse of him when he thought no one was watching. She lingered near the gated entrance of his Beverly Hills home, watching lights flicker through the windows, imagining the life he lived without her. The desperation began to consume her. Friends noticed her withdrawing, skipping classes, and letting her dreams and fashion dissolve. Every ounce of her energy was spent trying to secure his attention. The sweet excitement of forbidden love was gone, replaced by sleepless nights, racing thoughts, and an obsession she could no longer control. The affair that once promised escape was now a cage, and Claire was locking herself inside. One stormy evening in early spring, Claire drove aimlessly through the quiet, rain-slicked streets of Los Angeles. Her mind was heavy, consumed by the gnawing thought that Rajesh was drifting further away. As she turned onto the street where his mansion stood, she slowed her car and parked at a distance, cloaked in shadows. Through the blur of raindrops on her windshield, she saw him step out of his front door, umbrella in hand. A moment later, his wife emerged. Claire's heart froze as she watched them walk together down the driveway, their movements in unison, their smiles unforced. Then came the final blow. Rajesh pulled Anjali into a warm embrace, pressing a kiss against her forehead. In that instant, the illusion shattered. The promises he whispered in hotel rooms, the future he painted so vividly, collapsed before her eyes. He wasn't preparing to leave his family. He was protecting it. Claire sat trembling, her nails digging into the steering wheel, rage coursing through her veins. The man she thought belonged to her had never truly been hers at all. The next day, the rage didn't fade. It lingered like poison, seeping into every thought. She began trailing him deliberately, keeping notes of where he went, whom he met, how long he stayed. She memorized his routines with chilling precision. At night, she replayed the image of him with his wife, the betrayal fueling her resolve. Her friends barely recognized her anymore. The once ambitious student who dreamed of fashion shows and design sketches had vanished. In her place stood someone hollow, whose only purpose was to win back control over a man slipping away. For Claire, love no longer meant passion, it meant possession, and she was ready to risk everything to ensure he would never turn away again. Late one humid summer evening, Rajesh left his downtown office after finalizing a crucial deal. The city buzzed with its usual chaos, but he felt a rare sense of relief as he loosened his tie and walked toward his sleek black car. He didn't notice the sedan parked across the street, headlights off, engine quiet. Inside sat Claire, hands gripping the steering wheel, eyes fixed on him with a mix of longing and fury. For weeks, she had rehearsed this moment, each scenario darker than the last. Tonight, she told herself, there would be no more excuses, no more waiting. She trailed him silently through the winding streets, her pulse quickening each time the traffic lights brought her closer to his rear bumper. Rajesh pulled into a near-empty parking lot, answering a phone call as he settled into his seat. Claire's opportunity had arrived. She stepped out of her car, rain from an earlier storm still dampening the ground beneath her feet. Her breath came in shallow bursts as she approached, her shadow stretching across the pavement until it fell against his window. The confrontation was quick, chaotic, and filled with emotions that had been simmering for months. Rajesh, caught between shock and fear, tried to calm her, but Claire's fury had reached a point of no return. What happened in those frantic moments would forever remain unclear. What investigators later confirmed was simple: Rajesh never made it out alive. His body was discovered slumped in the driver's seat, multiple stab wounds marking the end of his double life. Claire disappeared into the night, leaving behind only a bloodied crime scene and a city stunned by the downfall of a man admired by many. The forbidden romance that had begun with a spark had now burned everything to ashes. The morning after Rajesh's body was discovered, the story spread like wildfire across Los Angeles. News outlets scrambled to cover the shocking murder of a prominent businessman whose reputation had been built on success and philanthropy. His family was thrust into the spotlight, forced to mourn publicly while whispers of betrayal and scandal swirled around them. The revelation of his secret affair sent shockwaves through his community, tarnishing the image of a man once celebrated for his discipline and charm. Behind the polished facade, There had been secrets dark enough to end in blood. Detectives pieced together the timeline quickly. Security cameras showed a car tailing Rajesh's that night. Fingerprints on the door handle of his vehicle matched Claire's. Phone records revealed a flood of unanswered calls and messages she had sent in the days leading up to the killing, each more desperate than the last. Within a week, a warrant was issued, and Claire's face was plastered across television screens and newspapers. The city buzzed with fear and fascination. Who was this young woman who had turned from lover to fugitive? Her flight from justice was brief. After 2 tense weeks, Claire was recognized at a bus terminal in Arizona, carrying a worn backpack stuffed with cash, jewelry, and faded photographs of Rajesh. Exhausted and disoriented, she surrendered without resistance. During questioning, she admitted she never intended to kill him, only to force him to finally choose her over his family. The trial captivated the nation. Prosecutors painted her as a cold-blooded murderer. Her defense argued she was a vulnerable woman manipulated by an older, powerful man. In the end, the jury sided with the evidence. Claire was sentenced to life in prison. Her story became a haunting reminder of how love, when twisted into obsession, can destroy everyone in its path.